Welcome to the January 22nd regular board meeting of Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. The meeting is hereby called to order. Will you all please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the Secretary please call the roll?
President Andrews.
Present.
Vice President Mason.
Present.
Director Lassane.
Present.
Director Mitchell.
Present.
Director Nankar.
Present.
Student Representative Pollock. Student Representative Tran.
Present.
Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you please introduce tonight's agenda?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Consistent with the plans established at your 2018 Summer Planning Workshop, tonight's agenda contains several elements related to both the district's strategic plan and the board's annual goals. There is a segment for routine business tonight, a segment for recognition items, a segment for board comments, a segment for the superintendent's report, one for strategic progress reporting, a segment for unfinished business, one for new business, a segment for upcoming agenda items. There was one change to the agenda since it was published. Typically, item 9.1, the superintendent's report, would be updated during the meeting as is customary for regular meetings. In addition, one of the items in your consent agenda, item 7.6, was amended to add a PowerPoint and some other background information for you that we had intended to get to you last week, but did not. So we've loaded it into that item so that you may see it. None of the content, if you will, none of the actual action items or content was changed at all. So in effect, there have been no changes to the agenda content since it was published, and therefore we ask your approval. Of course, the board may change the order of business by a majority vote of the members, and this, however, is not the point in your agenda to request items be removed from the consent agenda. That comes a little bit later.
Thank you, Dr. Cohn. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
A second.
Been moved by Director Mason and seconded by Director Mitchell to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. Moving on to section 5.0, recognitions. This is School Board Recognition Month, as declared by Governor Jay Inslee. So, Dr. Cohn?
Yes, it's actually my pleasure to be a part of the group that's going to spend a few minutes recognizing the work that you all do as school board directors and as a school board. As you noted, Governor Inslee has declared January 2019 School Board Recognition Month in honor of the really significant role that school directors play, the elected school directors play in promoting public education in our state. Representatives of our PTSA Council, our foundation, our school administrators, our teachers are here, and I will say a few words at the conclusion as well. So the agenda lists several presenters, and I'll add to that. I'd like to call in order, and feel free to come up to the lectern as you are comfortable doing so. Angela Steck is listed first. She's president of our council of PTSAs in the district. Michelle Nims likely may go with her, and they may be accompanied by other people. Michelle is president of the state PTA, and I'm not sure what order she's coming up. It may be following the group that's up there right now. And then after her, Becky Ballback, who's co-president of the school administrators group, is going to speak to you, and then Jared Kink with possibly other members of the Everett Education Association would like to speak to you, and then I'll do the cleanup. All right?
Wonderful.
Angela?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Angela Steck, and I'm the president of the Everett PTSA Council, and joining me are fellow leaders on our council team. I believe most everyone in the room is already familiar with PTA and the many benefits it brings to a school and their community. The Everett PTSA Council works closely with all 26 PTAs in our district and possibly a 27th with Tambar Creek Elementary. Our vision is to be a meaningful and vital resource to PTAs and our community partners, and our mission is to support, empower, and guide our PTAs to be successful. With over 3.5 million members nationwide, PTA is one of the largest child advocacy organizations. PTA addresses issues that are important to parents and public administrators. We fight for full funding, quality teachers, and other means for schools to thrive. Our partnership with the district and with the school board is an important one. There's nothing more vital to the health of this community than our public schools, and so today we'd like to recognize our school board leaders for working to ensure quality educational opportunities for all of our local children. Thank you for working tirelessly to provide the resources our students need in order to succeed. We know that budgets are tight and decisions are difficult. We understand that you may not always agree with each other, and voters may not always agree with your decisions, but we do agree on a common goal of helping all students achieve. The calling to be a school board director is similar to the calling to be a PTA leader. You serve because you care about what goes on in your schools and in our community. So on behalf of the 5,040 PTA members in our Everett PTSA Council, thank you for your love of learning and for your concern and caring for the students, staff, and community in our district. We look forward to many more years of working together for the good of our students in our district. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My goodness. Thank you.
I'm actually shockingly not here for PTA today. Thank you. Because they have
Maybe
it all
foundation,
handled.
I don't know.
I'm here for the foundation
All right.
today.
Oh, that's nice, thank you.
Well, good afternoon. On behalf of the Everett Public Schools Foundation, I would like to thank the Board of Directors for their hard work and dedication to the students, staff, and families of this district that we both serve. Yesterday, we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I thought it would be appropriate to share a bit of his wisdom as we celebrate you. Quote, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education." And that is our goal here in Everett Public Schools. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and prepare each student to achieve high standards, contribute to our community, and thrive in a global society. Dr. King also said, quote, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." So thank you for leading our district forward. School boards are asked to support the children and communities they serve. Thank you for serving our over 19,000 students because they all deserve to thrive. Thank you for serving our 26, almost 27 schools and their wonderfully unique communities because they are all valuable and add to the educational experience here in Everett. Thank you for helping to move our district forward and educating the students who will eventually lead our communities, our state, and our country. Another quote from Dr. King is, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" Well, the foundation believes that you are doing for others by serving on our school board. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your countless hours, dedication, and passion serving our students, staff, and community. On behalf of the foundation, I have a small token of gratitude for each of you, and please let me thank you again for your service. Probably needs more coffee. Especially finals week, right? We're amazing here on finals week.
Thank you. It's so thoughtful. Wow.
Wow, thank you.
All
What do you
kinds
got, a
of
new
gifts and
logo?
treats.
Somebody got a new logo.
Didn't they?
Okay, all right.
I like that new logo.
Cougar.
Becky?
Chairwoman Andrews, members of the board, Dr. Cohn. I'm pleased to be here tonight representing the Everett Association of School Administrators as we honor you and the work that you do every day for the staff and students of Everett Public Schools. You are certainly well known across the state for your visionary leadership, having earned your 4th Board of Distinction Award. But closer to home, we know the difference that you make in the lives of our students every single day. You exemplify our core values of equity, passion, learning, integrity, respect, diversity, and collaboration. This is so evident through your collaboration in study sessions, your intentional community engagement, and your support of student activities. By your thoughtful reflection and on district programs and your leadership through challenging times, you provide the solid foundation on which we serve the students and families in our district. We are so grateful to have such a dedicated, caring, and professional board guiding our work. While Board Recognition Month comes only once a year, please know we appreciate you and the work you do for the staff and students of Everett Public Schools every day. Thank you so much. I'm honored to present this certificate, and I'll follow up with something to put in those notes.
Would you introduce your colleagues?
Hi, I'm Jared Kink. I'm the president of the Everett Education Association, representing the over 1,300 certificated employees in the district. And these are part of my leadership team, Cameron Taffa, Jenny Steele, and Heidi Little, who we spend a lot of summers with. So we came to thank you and recognize you for often the tough decisions that you have to make. You often, we often talk about changing lives in the association, and the Everett School District is known for changing children's lives. Everything from in kindergarten, they learn how to read, to SLPs that teach kids how to overcome lateral lisps, to teachers that write recommendations so kids can get into college. Those are all things that change kids' lives. But I think what we often miss is the work that you do also changes your employees' lives. And I wish I could bring up hundreds of teachers here to share stories about working in Everett allows them to do things to move into the community so they don't have to commute 2 hours more every day from Seattle or from Kirkland or Lake Washington, places we like to steal teachers from. But that extra 2 hours is just maybe we just look at it at hours, but that's 2 hours more with their kids. And that time you can't put a price on, or that they can get a reliable car, or they pay off their student loans. Working in Everett under the employment conditions that we have, the contract that we have, changes lives for their employees. And we want to thank you and recognize you for the tough decisions that you have to make every day, both to change the lives of kids, but also of the employees that are proud to work in the Everett School District. So thank you so much. Yes.
I might need my bag. Thank you, Jeff.
Don't be dripping.
Thank you very much, everyone.
So maybe what you'd like to do before I finish is maybe I should give you your certificates, and everybody who just spoke comes up to the front and gets a little picture with you. What do you think? Would that be all right?
Sure.
So let me give you these on behalf of the, you can put them in your other hands, on behalf of the Washington State School Directors Association. Let's go ahead and grab your flowers and go around down around the front. Pam, here's one for you.
Oh, we can bring our flowers?
Yes, bring your flowers, bring your certificate. Everybody who just spoke at the lectern, come on up and gather in front of the dais, and we'll go ahead and Caroline, and we'll do a picture with the board members because they're delighted that you come to celebrate School Board Recognition Month.
love pictures.
Dr. Mitchell.
Right up front. If we go now, we can be in the back row. 6 weeks. There you go. Pat's been moved to the back row. There you go. We're like twins.
I'm not going to be able to get on. You guys want to be in the front row.
School board in the front row.
The board in the front.
Should be in the front row.
Come on in.
Because the one in front, the directors in front.
Come on, you guys. They'll group around.
There we go.
I think they want you to.
Yes, put school board in the middle.
We work it so like we're between. I can only get as far as Becky.
Well, that's right.
You're gonna have. Yeah, so.
Get in there, Heidi.
Do you want to be in it?
No. But you're gonna have to get in further because she can't fit in the picture.
This is good. Tom.
There we go.
And there we go.
All right, everyone look at me and say cheese.
Where's your certificate? Okay.
One more. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you so Yes, I'm going to mine. Take out any excuse not to.
I know, you feel like you're riding on the coattails for a while, and then you finally gain traction.
Well, thank you very much for the recognitions. I much appreciated. I think I will speak on behalf of my board colleagues, and just, unfortunately, everyone's leaving, but I mean, our success is really based on the hard, difficult, great work that you do every day in the trenches, everyone. So we appreciate the recognition, but as I said, it's really based on everyone else's success as well. So thank you, and I know I look forward to these cards every year, and people I have sent them to love them as well. The flowers are gorgeous. We also have some beautiful little cookies here that...
Where did those come from?
I do not know.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, they're beautiful.
Thank you, yes. So...
And they have your names on them, don't they?
Yes.
That's nice.
Yeah. I like they're too pretty to eat.
And spelled right, too.
Moving on to section 6.0, public comments. The school board sets aside time during each regular board meeting to hear from our constituents. We do this because we value public input and want to hear and understand the perspectives you bring to the table. Dr. Cohn, are there any requests for comments?
Yes, there are.
tonight? Okay, on behalf of the board, I welcome you to this meeting. Our school board meetings are designed to conduct district business in public. We welcome ideas and opinions presented in that same spirit, and I will share how this portion of the meeting is conducted. The superintendent will call you to the podium to speak in the order in which you signed up. Each speaker has 3 minutes. All comments are recorded and will be made available for future viewing by the board and public. This public comment time is for the board to listen to what you have to say. It is not a time for debate or discussion, and board members do not respond to individual comments. As board president, I have the responsibility to ensure the meeting and all conversations are orderly, productive, and respectful, and I thank you for helping me carry out that responsibility. Dr. Cohn, will you announce the first speaker?
I'd be happy to. When you approach the lectern, the green light will signify the start of your 3 minutes, the yellow a 30-second warning, and the red the expiration of your time. Jarrett will start it as soon as you approach the lectern. The first speaker this evening is George Kosovich, and he is coming before you to speak to the topic of before and after school care. He's a resident of the district and a parent of a student registered at View Ridge Elementary.
Good afternoon. My name is George Kosovich, and I do have a child at View Ridge Elementary. I'm here to speak to you about the changes in before and after care in the district. As I think you probably know, View Ridge starts at 9:15 in the morning and releases at 3:30 in the afternoon, earlier on Fridays. Since both the adults and my family work, we rely on before and after care that's provided on-site at the school. The current cost to us is about $350 a month. The school district has now chosen a different provider, and I've learned that my family's costs are going to roughly double. For some context, that increase, now we're just talking about the increase, is more than we spend on property taxes every year that goes to the district. It's more than we put aside in my daughter's college savings account every month. In fact, if you put the difference, $300 a month, and invested that in a college savings account from kindergarten through 5th grade, you earn 7% return, you'd have $44,000 in the bank by the time that child graduated from high school. That's 4 years tuition at the University of Washington. Even families receiving financial assistance will see an increase. And an 85% increase in costs, even with a 25% discount, is an increase. We all know childcare is expensive. So I would ask the district, why are you making it more expensive for View Ridge and other families? More than the cost, I wanted to share my concerns that there wasn't any parent communication in this process. Parents at my daughter's school were not notified the district was even considering a change. I understand a focus group was convened somewhere in the district, but for a change of this magnitude, I'd hope parents from impacted schools would be informed before decisions were made. This absolutely did not happen at View Ridge, and it doesn't appear to have happened at other schools. I receive text messages and emails about all kinds of district issues, and if the district can send me a text message about Pajama Fridays, then I know you have the capability to reach out on more important matters. You have the tools in place, but it's important that you use them. I can't help but think that if the district were directly paying for the service, this process would have worked differently. If one bidder came in at $1 million and another came in at $2 million, don't you think some harder questions would have been asked by this board? If parents are valued partners with the district, then our perspective should be considered when you're providing the one school on-site space available for aftercare. What am I asking of the board today? I'd like you to put the brakes on the transition at View Ridge and the other schools. Please postpone the changes until you understand the financial impact on families. I'm asking you to start back where you should have in the first place, trying to put yourselves in families' shoes. Imagine if somebody sent you a bill for an extra $300 a month per child. What would the impact be on your family? By definition, we're busy people. That's why we need before and after care, but we'll find time to engage if you're willing to listen. Thank you.
The next speaker is Caitlin Kosovich, and she is also a resident of the district, a parent of a child at View Ridge, and she'd like to talk to you about using the YMCA as the sole provider for before and after school care.
Thank you. My name is Caitlin Kosovich, and I am sharing with you deep concerns my family has about the recent decision to use the YMCA as the sole before and after school childcare provider in this district. I am a mother of a 3rd grader at View Ridge Elementary. We have used the Boys and Girls Club for nearly 4 years now. The staff is exceptional, friendly, and kind. While under their care, my daughter gets a healthy snack, ample time to play outside, organize games in the gym, fun art projects, and time to read or do homework. We absolutely love the Boys and Girls Club. Now, you didn't know this because you never asked me. You never asked any of the parents at View Ridge Elementary how we feel about our before and after school childcare. I should point out that I am a member of the YMCA and have been for many years. I absolutely love the YMCA. This is not against the YMCA at all. I will point out that Dr. Cohen is the YMCA board chairman. This raises a flag and has caused me to think deeply about what has happened here. Parents affected by this decision are very concerned and have reached out to board members and Peter Scott. The most troubling response I received was reassurance that a parent focus group was held. It was surprising to hear that a parent focus group was held. I am curious about why I found out about this after this decision was made. I am a parent and never received notification that I could be part of a focus group. Watching the footage of the July 3rd school board meeting, it was clear that Dr. Cohen did not seem to make proper care to recuse himself from this discussion. When Peter Scott was finally brought forward to help answer some questions, he made it clear that there were some communication loops that were going to be closed before this decision was made. I'm sorry, but the communication loops were not closed, and yet this decision was made. Why were the people most affected by this decision, the kids receiving the care and the parents paying for the care, not really involved in this decision process? The most troubling outcome is the obvious steep increase in cost. This aspect has been treated with little to no respect for the families you're supposed to serve in this district. Telling us to contact the YMCA to work out financial issues has been demeaning. Families that do not qualify, such as ours, pays double. That is the reality for us. Families that do qualify for financial aid or scholarship still see an increase. I wonder how clear this fact was made to the school board members before this decision was decided. Thank you very much.
Thank you both for your comments.
The next speaker this evening is Daleen Krunchi, and she is a parent of a student at View Ridge and would like to speak to you about before and after school care.
Hello, my name is Daleen Cronchi. My son uses the Boys and Girls Club at View Ridge Elementary. I'm here to speak on behalf of the 80+ parents who have contacted us to share their concerns and tell their stories. Unfortunately, many of them are not able to attend because of the early start time. As I stated last time, the new contract with YMCA is going to cost most hardworking families twice what they currently pay for equivalent care. By replacing the Boys and Girls Club with the YMCA at View Ridge and Emerson, you're removing choices from many families instead of creating opportunities like you tout. After reviewing the RFP, the proposals, and the scoring, I'm beginning to see how your selection process drove this undesirable outcome. Somehow in your scoring, the YMCA, which costs approximately double, earned a price score within 1% of the Boys and Girls Club. How is that even possible? Points are awarded for enrollment forms, but there's no scoring for accessibility for our Everett families. A process that systematically denies access to one group in favor of another with greater financial means is broken. Having read through the contract, the language makes it very clear there is no guarantee this solves the problem of limited childcare at some schools. The YMCA stated they require 20 full-time kids at each site to staff a new location. If the YMCA's on-site care at Jackson Elementary is any indication, the YMCA is going to have a hard time expanding into schools that need it most because of their high prices. From Jackson, the Y serves 5 schools, and they still have openings when I called 2 weeks ago. In contrast, the Boys and Girls Club has been at capacity at Emerson all year, and they even transport kids from the clubhouse to meet the demand. Approximately 65% of the families at Emerson and Jackson qualify for free and reduced lunches. You've chosen a provider that will not be able to offer childcare at the price these families can afford. The selection process is broken. Also, I'm not aware of any communication with parents before the decision was made. And even though Peter Scott stood up here, this very podium on the 3rd of July board meeting and assured Pam that he would absolutely close the loop with the parents, we did not receive any communication from the school district until after the Boys and Girls Club contacted us. Peter Scott and Caroline Mason continue to pass the buck every time they respond to parents by saying, we have also learned the Boys and Girls Club is looking at expanding their sites on Casino Road and at Trailside, both of which are within access to EPS schools. What they should be saying is, I'm sorry we made this decision without understanding how it would impact the families, and thank you, Boys and Girls Club, for working so hard to fix the problem we created. The selection process is broken. Again, I ask, what problem are you trying to solve? If the result of the selection process is a single source provider that costs $200 more a month than the county average, I'm here to say the selection process is broken. Please help us fix it so that the district achieves the objective stated in every one of your canned responses. Superintendent Cohen, I read the article in the Herald about your upcoming retirement. Did you really mean what you said when you're on a mission of reaching every child? If so, you need a better process for selecting one or more before and after school care providers that guarantees it is accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
The fourth and final speaker this evening is Janelle Cronchi, and Janelle would like to speak to you about before and after school care and is a parent of a student at View Ridge.
Thank you so much. It was moving here to hear earlier the acknowledgments to the school board and the district for everything that you are doing. And I am also a fellow public servant. I do thank you, and it can be hard to hear things like this. Unfortunately, your core value of equity is not showing up authentically in this process and in these actions. I was angry that it was going to double my costs and you didn't consult me about that, but I was outraged when I figured out what it was going to do to our communities. I heard a couple of quotes from Martin Luther King today and Jr., and on this holiday weekend, I'm going to share a couple as well. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter, and this matters. You see, I have had a chance to talk to these families face to face. They told me their stories, and I was able to clearly articulate the fee structures to these families, so you should be able to, and tell them the information that the school district hasn't told them. And they told me their stories about how they're working 4 jobs and there's just no way for the money to come from somewhere. But how they'll have to choose to let their child, a second grader, I heard a story of a second grader, that will have to take a key and walk home. Stories about how they have to choose between activities and childcare, or are making major life decisions to being able to access affordable care. And they are not alone. We have data to support this. You see, this decision will systemically deny access to before and after school care for a majority of our families in the districts, and it limits economic mobility in a community that desperately needs it. The median income family of 4 will not qualify for free and reduced lunch or child care subsidy from the state. They are paying higher rent than Seattle, and now they are paying higher before and after school rates than Seattle at a fraction of the wages. I want you to imagine that you're this family of 4, maybe a single mother, because I met many of them. This hurts them hardest. And working couples to provide for and save for and give every opportunity to your child that maybe you didn't have, and now you have to pay $1,500 to $2,400 for before and after school care for just hours, right? I invite all of you sincerely from the bottom of my heart to come meet these families. I will organize it in the evening because they can't be here because they're working. How lucky am I that I have a job that I can leave and come here to talk to you, because we have lots of them. I will plan it, I will organize it, and I invite you to come hear their stories. For those of you here in the audience today and watching online, you should know that this decision affects all of us, even if you don't use the Boys and Girls Club. Because if our families can't afford on-site care that's accessible, they can't access your before and after school programs that the PTAs put on. Their families aren't accessing the very schools that we want them to volunteer and be involved at. They are also, crime goes up between 3 and 6 p.m. And I got that from the treadmill that I run on from the membership organization that I'm part of. Also, more importantly, I know that it can be easy to stay silent when we feel like this decision doesn't directly affect you. But again, to quote Dr. King, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of convenience, but where he stands in challenge of controversy. Please reconsider this decision, put a break on it, and include an equity measure when we are looking at before and after school care. Thank you sincerely. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you for your comments. We'll move on to section 7.0, consent agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you provide an introduction to the consent agenda?
Certainly. The board's consent agenda contains repetitive business items. The examples of this type of item include meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts and grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes the consent agenda will include items that occur less frequently, but are of a routine business nature. The less frequently occurring agenda items are usually reviewed by the board in its Friday report 1 or more weeks before the board meeting when those items are scheduled to appear in the consent agenda. This gives directors time to ask staff questions about those items or to consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. If a consent agenda item is removed by the concurrence of 2 directors, that item is placed in new business and the remaining items are automatically renumbered. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, the consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received questions regarding the item 7.6 paraeducators tentative agreement to amend the contract between the union and the district, and those questions were answered and additional material added to the agenda item. In the case of this consent agenda, no other items have been inquired about, and therefore the consent agenda is presented as published for your approval.
Thank you, Dr. Cohn. A motion to approve of the consent agenda as presented is in order.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Nankar to approve the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the agenda and place it in the new business section?
I would. I'd like to remove the 7.06 approval of letter agreement between Everett Association of Paraeducators and Everett Public Schools. I'd like to put it in the new business section so we have an opportunity to ask a few questions given the late notice of some of the additional information.
Is there a second to that request?
Second.
So it's been moved by Director Mason and seconded by Director Mitchell to move item 7.06, approval of letter of agreement between the Everett Association of Paraeducators and Everett Public Schools to new business. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. So that will be moved to new business, and now we will go back and approve. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda, correct, Dr. Cohn? So now
Yes.
we will vote on that.
Yes.
Okay, so after movement of item 7.06, we will vote to accept the consent agenda as modified. Thank you.
As modified.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No? Motion carries. And consent agenda is approved as modified. Moving on to section 8.0, board comments. This is an opportunity for directors and student representatives to share their activities during the week that relate to board service. Anyone like to volunteer to start? Start with Hannah. Start with Hannah last time, is that fair?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
So last Friday, I got an opportunity to be a part of the principal interview committee at Cascade High School with Dr. Lancaster and 6 other students, and it was quite an experience. I spent the whole day in the office, but I really enjoyed learning about how the possible principals would bring about change or keep Cascade the way it is. And it was an interesting perspective to see what it was like to be an interviewer instead of the interviewee, since I was in the same seat last May for this position. So that was a great experience.
That sounds like a great experience.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay. Director Lassane, do you have comments?
Yes, I do. I had the opportunity of attending our first saucer at Monroe, or rather my first saucer. I know some others may have attended a saucer, but I can truly say that if this is an indication of where we're going, this is going to be hard. I mean, they're already at the top of their game, and I do know that it takes so much time and effort to put a saucer on. Our teachers and administrators work very hard to give us the data that we need to decide the things that we have to decide. It's very difficult. But I do want to say thank you so much for the work that you do and that you put on a great opportunity for us to see what's going on within your schools. And Monroe's was very good. I think it was excellent. And I'm looking forward to all the other saucers that are coming up during this saucer season. State of the School Review, for those who don't know. I'm looking forward to these saucers. So I appreciate the hard work because it does take a lot of time. And hopefully they're not all just at 7 o'clock in the morning. So thank you.
Director Mason.
I too had the opportunity to attend my first State of School Review at Madison Elementary School, and it was just such, well, it was a celebration. That was their theme, and it truly was a celebration. Madison's been a school that has struggled with quite a few leadership changes, and it's just incredible once you get a strong principal on board, strong assistant principal, and then you have the very capable and ready staff. What can happen in just a short amount of time, really incredible. I was very impressed. And I just also wanted to say thanks. I mean, they're all gone, but thanks to everyone for the kind words this earlier this evening. It was very thoughtful, and they said some very, very nice things. So appreciate it, and all the gifts.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. First off, I am not a diva by wearing my sunglasses earlier. There's a real medical condition called migraines. I do not suffer from the debilitating pain ones. I actually do not get any pain. What I do get is what's called an optic migraine. I lose the left side of my vision, goes completely bright white or black, and light really bothers it. And so it started when I was driving here, which is actually really dangerous, but luckily it was when I was pulling in the parking lot, and the sunglasses do help. So I'm not a diva, and I'm just fine. But then I also attended 3 saucers this week, and the focus last week, the focus up there of 100% graduation rate is apparent at Jackson High School. All the work that they're doing, with the exception of their kids that are special ed, that they really are striving to get to that 100%. I saw 20% to the next 20% to standard at Monroe, focusing on those kids in the middle, my term, not theirs. And then the achievement gap really being focused on at Mill Creek Elementary. And so I saw all 3 of those things at each of those schools, which I thought was phenomenal. And for each of those levels, Larry, I really do appreciate the question that you posed to each of the teams about, are we asking the kids what would help them? What would help them learn English? What would help them get over it? Whatever their barrier is. And I think we have so many experts out there, so many best practices, but how many times do we actually ask the kid, is it a hug? Is it a smile? Is it a pat on the back? Is it a high five? Is it, you just can't read? And so I appreciate that. So that's my school stuff. Next thing is just a concern globally about this push towards STEM, and nothing negative about STEM, but a big article in the Seattle Times on Sunday about them losing their history programs. And I have a liberal arts degree that I think developed me as a human, and then I went into a STEM field, paying a lot of money afterwards. But I hope that, we will, because it's a state law, continue the liberal arts in all of our kids. But I think we need to just have a focus on that for the higher education. And then I'm going to put a plug in for Gateway. I think they're having their first play in a gazillion years, because they didn't have them when my daughter was there. But they're doing The Little Mermaid Junior at the Everett Civic Auditorium this Saturday. You can buy tickets at gatewayptsa.org. 2 and 7 o'clock shows, but support those middle schoolers who are doing their first show in a long time. And then, Dr. Cohn, I do have a request, because I did look back. I do not know if I appreciated the cost difference between the Y and the Boys and Girls Club, and if it was in a Friday report, I apologize that I don't remember it, but I'm wondering if we could get a price structure between the two groups, because I do have concerns about a doubling in price when I don't believe that was a consideration when I voted yes for the change. And so I would just like to see, just what I'd like more information, please.
Thank you.
I'm going to add one more quick thing because I brought a show and tell piece for my fellow directors. I received this at home, and it is a flyer from Snow Isle Tech sent to my student outlining the programs, and they're having an open house so that parents can go attend. And having just been there, I know we had all asked the question of how do students find out about Snow Isle, and it's kind of, I guess, as we call marketing, a push and pull strategy, where we push it from the counselor standpoint and the success coordinators. Are they the ones responsible for? But this is the pull strategy where this is actually coming from Snow Isle and sent to my student. I don't know where they get their mailing list, but he's a junior, so they must know that. But anyhow, I'm going to pass it around so everyone can kind of see what one of the pieces looks like.
Thank you. And coincidentally, I had that on my board comments because I realized at our last meeting, I forgot to comment about our visit to Snow Isle, which occurred after our December meeting.
Right before Christmas,
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Too much of a lapse. But the board did visit Snow Isle Tech Center. We had a lovely lunch in Le Bistro Restaurant, which is their training in the culinary arts area. And then afterwards, we toured the skill center, and I was just thoroughly impressed with the programs and the facilities. We walked through the dental assistant clinic and saw the equipment there and the training they receive. They also have a dental clinic that's open to the community where they help people who may not have the money to pay for dental services. The diesel and automotive mechanic room was filled with these big trucks and all these sort of
Smelled like diesel?
Yeah. It looked to me to be all up-to-date technology. There was a veterinary assistant program. Anyway, really, I think very valuable programs for students, especially, the hands-on aspect. And I think we all walked away feeling like we do want to make sure our students are aware of those opportunities. They can earn college credits and also industry certifications in the programs. So that is an interesting flyer that went out. And again, I think a good link to our career-connected pathways. I also have attended 3 saucers since the last board meeting, all of them at elementary schools. And I've been attending saucers for years, and I tell you this year I'm walking away with just a real awareness of how complex teaching elementary school is. I mean, it's amazing. My hats are off to all of the elementary school staffs. And I won't talk about each one, but it's just saw so much evidence of highly performing teams and focus on each student. The principals would know exactly which student was not making standard and all the efforts going towards that student. Also, just some real interesting strategies. One they gave an example of at Mill Creek was questioning, discussion, strategies for students, and then with feedback. And the story the instructor told, I think she's a 3rd grade teacher, she'd been absent from the classroom, and when she came back, the students wanted to know what she'd been doing. She said she'd been practicing her presentation, so they had her present it to their class, and they gave her feedback and critique on her presentation and told her she was using too many repetitious words and all sorts of stuff. So that's another thing I've walked away with is very impressed by students' responsibility for their own learning and how they're monitoring themselves. So that, I think, We have 3 minutes, okay. Well, I will just add this. Of course, since our last board meeting, we had a special meeting to accept Dr. Cohn's resignation letter, which I think you state in your letter comes with great joy and sadness, which I think we could also duplicate those emotions. I guess for me personally, I found myself going back to 10 years ago, 9 years ago, when we went through the superintendent search process to hire you. I actually still have my notebook and my files. And I was looking through them, and I did find this. We did community engagement and forums before we started the interview process. I had notes from that, and this one quality that we needed in our superintendent jumped out at me. It actually came from the leadership team at that time, and it reads, "We need someone who believes in high-performing teams, cohesiveness, accountability. We need someone with guts," which I just thought that was pretty relevant to what we have seen over the last 10 years, along with just amazing leadership. I will say that. I think leadership beyond what we ever imagined when we hired you. So that was a big week for the board, and we have a lot to do ahead of us. So that concludes my comments. We will move on to section superintendent's comments, whatever that is, right? 9.0. Dr. Cohn?
All righty. Tonight, we're going to take a look at a few examples of our schools celebrating Martin Luther King Jr.'s anniversary in our country. There are a variety of examples of the way we recognize Dr. King's contribution to our country, our lives, the world. This happens to be on the header page a picture of an assembly at Lowell Elementary. Tonight, we've got a fairly abbreviated report, and these are the topics that I intend to zip through fairly quickly. I had the opportunity to attend the MLK Recognition Assembly at Everett High School. It was led by the Black Student Union at Everett High School and the community of students there who led the assembly to honor and remember the accomplishments of Dr. King, titled their presentation Dream, Speak, Act. And I have to tell you, it was just one more example from my perspective of the remarkable talent at our high schools. The students designed and delivered a really moving and talent-filled artistic implementation of the King Assembly, and I wish all of you could have seen it. This slide is of an entry wall created by students who designed and created a quarter circle. Then they put together the pieces to create a very beautiful and cohesive and I think inspiring backdrop at their school. It's called "We Are Leaders" in the entry wall, and I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty darn impressive. And on top of that, it's pretty darn colorful. So I thought you'd enjoy that. Beginning this month, third grade students at Hawthorne Elementary School go to the Everett Family YMCA and swim. The YMCA program is called Make a Splash. Each class goes to the Y Monday through Thursday for 2 weeks, where students learn basic swimming and safety skills. And I think they enjoy a bit of hands-on fun. One student shared, and I'll quote, "I went swimming at the YMCA. I learned to do jumps, how to swim without splashing, and how to hold my breath for a long time. I felt happy and excited because I've not gone swimming in a long time." Now, this swim program's a major safety, not just physical fitness, but a major safety initiative and priority in our community, led by the YMCA, and I think our schools have participated in it for some time. I thought you would appreciate knowing about that. This past weekend, 6 teams from Mill Creek Elementary, Cedarwood Elementary, Gateway Middle School, and North Middle School competed in the Seattle First Lego League semifinals hosted by Amazon. The North Middle School Smarty Nerds won the Robot Design Award for Strategy and Innovation. Gateway's Lego Guardians Silver Team, I always want to say Guardians of the Universe, but probably that would be a movie that we wouldn't want to. And anyway, Lego Guardians Silver Team won the Project Award for Innovative Solution and advanced to the Western Washington Championships in February. And near and dear to my heart, our DEC students were off to state. Over 100 students from all of our comprehensive high schools competed at the Area 2 event. We want to congratulate a number of students who qualified for state competition. Everett High School's DECA team had 9 students qualify. Jackson High School has 14 students who will compete at state, and Cascade High School is sending 6 students to state. Jackson High School's Rexa Rayala was elected as DECA's Area 2 president for 2019-20. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to recognize that accomplishment. Eisenhower 7th and 8th grade National Junior Honor Society students gave a helping hand after a recent windstorm. Pine cones and branches from the windstorm had cluttered Eisenhower's blacktop area and made some of the areas slippery. The students took it upon themselves to pick up the mess after school, making it a safer, cleaner area. This is National Junior Honor Society's first year at Eisenhower. Now, Jefferson Elementary has one of the highest tardy rates in the district. And you know from our work that when we are data-driven, we start to work more often than not on the most significant data point that we come to when we do a data analysis. In an effort to encourage each child to be at school on time every day, at Jefferson, they have implemented no tardy taters. Each classroom has a Mr. or Mrs. Potato Head. Every day that all the students are on time in their classrooms, which is 9:15 a.m., a body part is added to the potato head. I want you to know that I edited a lot out of this particular item that was submitted to me, just so that you'll have a little appreciation for that. Each time all 10 parts have been added, students will earn a classroom celebration experience such as extra recess. When a class reaches 40 days, they'll earn fun with principals. I think that means the principal and assistants. A dance celebration, making slime together, sliming the principals, or some other classroom choice within reason and I'm sure good taste. The first class to reach 75 days earns an ice cream cone celebration with the superintendent. The first class to reach 100 will earn lunch with Mayor Cassie Franklin. 75, 100, I guess 25%. Okay. Anyway, that's what that's what tardy taters looks like at Jefferson, and we're very much looking forward to a reduction in the tardies. Buridge Elementary received a $10,000 gift from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You approved it in the consent agenda. It recognizes Lee Kleinot's 10-year anniversary working with the Gates Foundation. Mr. Kleinot's generous direction of the donation will be used to purchase STEM resources and provide after-school tutoring for English language students. So we have STEM and kind of liberal arts. A little bit of a quick construction update. As weather permits, the contractor at North Middle continues to install roofing material in the northern portion of the new building. Interior and exterior metal framing is well underway. The plumbing, electrical, ductwork, and fire sprinkler rough-in is underway. The newly constructed boys' locker room and the gym is nearing completion and will be ready for use in February. In this photograph, the architect, electrical engineer, and contractors discuss details of a teaching wall electrical rough-in. That is conduit and electrical box locations and routing. That's the superintendent's report for this evening. I want you to note that I put a little bit of time in the bank.
Thank you, Dr. Cohn.
Thank you.
On to section 10.0. We will have a presentation on the next generation science standards, transition status update.
Good evening. In what has become our yearly tradition, almost exactly to the date, of the Next Generation Science Standards updates, I look forward to presenting to you tonight. In this evening's session, focused on the Next Generation Science Standards, or NGSS, I plan to provide analysis of the 2018 Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science results, as well as provide a status update of the district's transition to and implementation of the NGSS. The format of this evening's session will be the following. First, I will review the content from previous NGSS presentations. I will then review the 2018 Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science outcomes. I will then give particular attention to how we are addressing the outcomes of the 2018 WCAS by reviewing the implementation timeline for NGSS and providing an overview of the district's continued transition at each grade band. You were first introduced to the NGSS 2 years ago during the 2017 NGSS Readiness Report, and then again provided an overview last year during the January 2018 board presentation. This year's NGSS review will be brief. The NGSS were built to represent what students should know and be able to do. When teaching and learning are aligned with the NGSS, classroom experience should develop in-depth understanding of content and key skills that will serve a lifetime. The standards are comprised of 3 distinct and equally important dimensions. When integrated, they build a cohesive understanding of science over time. The core ideas, which are traditionally referred to as the content, core ideas from life sciences, engineering and technology, earth and space sciences, and physical sciences have been identified as foundational to science learning. The practices represent how scientists and engineers do their work. Students are expected to develop these practices, which supports engagement in scientific inquiry, teaches how to reason in science, and develops problem solvers. The cross-cutting concepts serve as lenses by which the scientific community studies problems. These concepts cross-cut all science practices and all core ideas. On January 23, 2018, I presented the NGSS Readiness Report that included the NGSS-aligned high school course map. In Washington State, each school district is tasked to determine how the NGSS are applied across each grade band. As a reminder, we convened a K-12 team called the NGSS Design Team to study local and national course maps and draft possible course maps for Everett Public Schools. The high school portion of the design team analyzed the criteria that needed to be applied to new high school courses to ensure they afford students the opportunity to pursue any post-secondary credential. The team analyzed NGSS-aligned instruction and curriculum features, the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science, the 24-credit policy, college admissions requirements, and career and technical education alignment, with special focus on educational, research, and career options in our area. The team proposed 3 new courses aligned with the NGSS: the Biology and the Environment course, which launched this fall, Physics in the Universe, which will launch in the fall of 2019, and Chemistry in the Earth Systems, to be launched in the fall of 2020. In addition, the course map provides students the opportunity to thread between a core pathway of rigorous courses and an advanced placement pathway. Later in the presentation, I will provide more information about the Biology and the Environment and the Physics in the Universe courses. As you know, the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science, or WCAS, launched this past spring. It is the class of 2021 that are currently required to pass the WCAS as a graduation requirement. This slide organizes grade band performance for our district and the state. Though our students did not perform as well as we anticipated, we continue to outperform the state at each level. The STEM science team have analyzed the performance data, have identified factors that we believe have impacted student performance, and have made operational adjustments based on these results. You will be introduced to these adjustments and strategies as part of this presentation. The science team analyzed data with Dr. Catherine Matthews as well as Cabinet. We believe there are at least 6 factors displayed on the screen that led to the scores you saw on the preceding slide. Though the state adopted the NGSS in 2013, the elementary and middle school measure of student progress for science and the high school end-of-course assessment remained the state assessments until 2018. Teachers were expected to learn new standards and shift their classroom teaching, but students were still being assessed on the old standards. As a result, teachers continued to support the learning needs for the spring MSP and EOC until a new assessment was put in place. Additionally, while we have made great strides at the elementary level in scheduling consistent and adequate instructional time for ELA and math, we need to ensure more instructional time is spent on science K through 5 so students develop the skills needed to be successful. The next several slides I will use to highlight the final 4 points: the structure of the assessment and required technology, the low high school participation, and the implementation dip. This slide is meant to highlight some of the many aspects of change with the implementation of the WCAS. First, as we compare an 8th grade MSP question on genetics to a WCAS question on genetics, we can see that the level of rigor of the assessment has increased. Students are no longer asked to just recall concepts, vocabulary, and definitions, but rather they are asked to apply their understanding of core concepts. In this case, they are to apply their understanding of genetics by developing a model. In addition, many aspects of the structure of the assessment are different. The WCAS is available online only. Students were taking the MSP and EOC assessments using paper and pencil. This was the first time that students at each grade level were required to take a science assessment online. Moreover, the WCAS requires particular and unique use of technology. The WCAS contains lengthier stimuli and often contain collapsing stimuli. This means that students need to expand multiple windows of information to prepare to answer prompts. The assessments contain multi-step locking problems. Students read and analyze information, respond, and then lock their answer. Once they've locked their answer, they cannot return to it for further editing. As they move on, additional input and the correct answers are given and builds on the problem with additional questions. Students need practice reviewing their work for the right answer before they move on. Finally, not only was the structure significantly different, but the state did not provide practice tests or training tests or guidance on these features until the January prior to the initial WCAS launch. For the spring of 2017, the biology end-of-course exam was administered in grade 10. Students understood this assessment to be their graduation requirement. In the spring of 2018, the WCAS was administered in grade 11. The same class of students, the class of 2019, was administered the state's high school science assessment twice. The students understood 2 things: that they met the science graduation assessment requirement the year prior when they took the biology end-of-course exam, and that the WCAS did not count as a graduation requirement. As a result, high school participation in the state assessment was low. Those that did participate may not have given their best effort, and 26% of high school students did not sit for the assessments and therefore received a score of 0. As previously stated, it is our current sophomores, the class of 2021, that will be the first class that needs to pass this assessment as a graduation requirement. Finally, I want to take a moment to remind us all that with the implementation of any new innovation, there often results in implementation dip. When we shifted to the Common Core and the SBA was introduced as the state assessment, scores declined. It was not entirely surprising to see the science scores dip with the implementation of the new test. Over the last several slides, I have shared a reminder of the structure of NGSS, reviewed our 2018 WCAS scores, as well as shared components to the decline in our performance. Though our decline was not as significant as the state's, we strive for better student performance. The next set of slides will overview the support and instructional moves we're making to ensure better success in the future. This slide highlights the current and future NGSS transitional steps by grade band. At the high school level, we are currently implementing the first of 3 new NGSS-aligned high school science and engineering courses. You will remember that with the 24 credit requirements, students are required to take 3 science courses. Our plan is to have full implementation of the NGSS-aligned courses by fall of 2020. At the middle school level, teachers continue to use defined STEM performance tasks to enhance the district's existing science adoption. In addition, a district-wide leadership team is developing NGSS transition guides and WACAS-aligned assessments for each unit of middle school science. Contingent on funding, we will engage in the adoption process for new NGSS-aligned middle school curriculum next year to implement in the fall of 2020. At the elementary level, NGSS transition guides and WACAS-aligned assessments are available to teachers to support their continued use of the district's existing science adoption, while shifting science instruction to align to the NGSS. Contingent on funding, we will engage in the adoption process for new NGSS-aligned elementary school curriculum to implement in the fall of 2020. This is the first of 6 slides meant to provide a greater introduction to the new Grade 9 Biology and the Environment course in Year 1 implementation. The course is supported by STEM Scopes curriculum, presented to you as a first reading in May of 2018, with a second reading in June of 2018. The fully digital curriculum is utilized via Canvas and is comprised of scopes, or units, with an anchoring phenomenon and performance tasks called missions. The next several slides will highlight an example instructional segment titled Ecosystem Interactions and Energy, giving some detail about anchoring phenomenon and missions and NGSS alignment. I will also share a sample lesson from the curriculum and highlight career-connected learning alignment. This slide includes an anchoring phenomenon and mission briefing from the STEM Scopes curriculum. I have highlighted some key points to draw your attention to. Each STEM Scopes instructional segment launches with an anchoring phenomenon. That is, a puzzling event or process whose full explanation requires a wide range of science ideas to be coordinated with one another and with evidence. In the case of this example instructional segment, students are presented with the problem of overpopulation resulting in resource overuse and depletion. From this, students are set on a mission. In their mission briefing, they assume the role of a professional and are tasked with solving a problem. For this mission, NASA has hired them as a scientist on a team meant to research and identify ecosystem dynamics needed for an endangered species to flourish on Europa. Scientists will need to report their findings back to NASA. This slide demonstrates the alignment of the 3 dimensions of NGSS. In order to perform the mission, students need to engage in several learning experiences to study the core ideas through the lenses of specific cross-cutting concepts and develop several science and engineering practices. For this instructional segment, students use mathematics and computational thinking, as well as engage in argument from evidence to explore how factors affect carrying capacity and biodiversity. They study the flow and cycle of matter and energy and how group behavior increases survival and reproduction. These concepts are studied through the lenses of scale and cause and effect. This slide represents one of the many lessons in an instructional segment. The STEM Scopes curriculum includes TUVA, an interactive platform with data from real-world phenomena collected from all over the world. This particular TUVA utilizes lynx and snowshoe hare data populated in Canada from 1845 to 1935. And I'm going to take a minute to show you how this interaction works. Students manipulate the data to create usable graphs to analyze relationships established in the objectives of the lesson. They can change the time range that's under study So I'm going to change this one to focus on the populations in the 1900 to 1920. And you can see data disappear as I do that. They can determine which variables they want to compare by dragging variables to the different axes on the graph. They can add features to the graph to make the graphs more user-friendly and readable. And they can reset their data once they've gained an understanding of the relationship and manipulate the data in a different way. For this lesson, students analyzed their graphs to explain the relationships between two organisms and how the relationship impacts the carrying capacity of each. They review for patterns based on scale, as well as cause and effect, two of the major cross-cutting concepts of the instructional segment. Their mathematical analysis provides the evidence students need to engage in scientific arguments regarding carrying capacity and the factors that influence populations and ecosystems. One aspect of this new course that was very exciting for the teachers implementing it was the opportunity to easily embed career-connected learning. The anchoring phenomenon and mission presented at the start of each instructional segment launched students into solving problems that are real in our world and communities today and put them into roles that represent actual careers they can pursue in their future. As we support teachers with the implementation of these instructional resources and segments, we provide them time with regional professionals aligned to the missions the students will embark on. As a reminder, the mission for this segment is for students to function as a scientist working for NASA. They are to determine ecosystem requirements for endangered species that will move to Europa. During professional development for this segment, teachers had time with Michael Kipp from the University of Washington. As a graduate student in the astrobiology department, Michael shared the current research for life in space and the types of degrees and careers students can pursue, with emphasis on opportunities within our region. Michael shared that in 2021, the Europa Clipper will be traveling to the moon of Jupiter to search for features that would support life. Many teachers were skeptical at the launch of this mission, but learned from Michael that the mission is relevant to the work that is taking place in our communities and by professionals today. We have also had a Washington State Everett researcher talk with our teachers about agriculture, and a Burke Museum scientist talk with our teachers about how to create science museum exhibits focused on evolution and earth formation, which the students will be doing this year. This year, we have 26 teachers implementing the Biology and the Environment course. Teachers were provided 3 days of summer initial use training, which included how to use the STEMscopes curriculum and digital platform, as well as prepare them to implement the first instructional segment. All 26 teachers are participating in sub-release training during the school year. During these sessions, teachers engage in backward planning for the units or instructional segments. They unpack the standards, the mission, the assessments, and the learning sequences and lessons. Each session includes career and technical education connection with guest speakers aligned to the missions, as well as updates from Brian Day, our CTE director. Finally, because this course utilizes fully digital curriculum via Canvas, technology support from LMS is always included. Teachers are provided time to learn new Canvas and platform tools, as well as ask questions to support building their skill in implementing lessons digitally. As previously stated, the Grade 9 Science Adoption process launched this month. The vetting and adoption process for the Physics in the Universe course will proceed until May of 2019, at which time I will present the committee's recommendation to you all. This course, which integrates physical science, earth and space science, and engineering standards, will be implemented in the fall of 2019. The Adoption Committee has identified that NGSS-aligned curriculum has a strong instructional model with units that launch with an anchoring phenomenon and authentic problems to solve. I look forward to presenting the committee's recommendation to you in May. As presented in the timeline slide, middle school teachers are still utilizing the Defined STEM Performance Task Platform. This platform enhances existing district middle school curriculum to be more NGSS aligned. Like the high school curriculum, these tasks launch with an anchoring phenomenon and a mission. Tasks also contain career-connected learning videos that highlight how the task is relevant to problems being solved in our world today. This image represents the introduction to the 7th grade performance task, Wildlife Biologist Bats. This task is embedded in the 7th grade Populations and Ecosystems District Adopted Unit. Students are tasked to learn about bats, their place in the food web, and how a decline impacts the ecosystem. Their final products include a public service announcement communicating the many benefits of bats and their role in our ecosystem, and the design of a model bat house. Students were introduced to the anchoring phenomenon and mission by way of the Define STEM platform, and then explored aspects of populations and ecosystems with the district curriculum. Once they developed their understanding of these core ideas, they researched bats specifically and designed bat house prototypes aligned to the criteria and the constraints. Students at Evergreen Middle School had the opportunity to collaborate with the industrial tech teacher, utilizing the shop equipment under his instruction to build their bat houses. Because of the quantity of bat houses produced, students created an information table with bat houses on display at the community events that were held at their school. Community members could sign up for a bat house to install on their own personal property. In addition, these students traveled to Forest Park to work with park rangers to have several of their built bat houses installed on the park's grounds. This performance task helped greater enhance the curriculum with the engineering design process. 7th grade students developed their skills of defining problems, designing solutions, and constructing explanations. The cross-cutting concept of cause and effect was used as the lens of analysis, analyzing how the loss of bats would affect an ecosystem. As students engage in these performance tasks, it becomes evident that problem solving requires the use of multiple disciplines as well as the community, which provides students the opportunity to engage in addressing real-world problems like scientists and engineers. To greater enhance the district's existing curriculum, middle school teachers representative of each school and grade are currently developing NGSS transition guides for each module or unit. This work is being led by our district's secondary science and engineering facilitator, Shannon Lacey. These transition guides are lesson-by-lesson planning tools that identify the three-dimensional alignment of the lesson. The guides call out student tasks and teacher moves aligned to the NGSS and include additional prompts and instructional strategies that can support teachers in more fully aligning the lessons with the NGSS. Shannon will also be leading the teachers in creating WACAS-aligned assessments for each unit. At the elementary level, teachers have access to completed transition guides via the district curriculum portal. In addition to what you just saw in the middle school transition guide, elementary transition guides include reach for reading alignment when applicable, identify possible formative assessments in each lesson, and include question stems in support of cross-cutting concepts in science and engineering practices. In addition to the transition guides, elementary teachers have access to WACAS-aligned assessments for each of their kits. Again, they have access to these via the district's curriculum portal. Like the WACAS, these assessments have been created to include more detailed stimulus and include prompts that call for the use of science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts to solve problems. The hope is to transition these assessments into Canvas to provide students the opportunity to practice expressing their knowledge and skill online, like the state assessment. We are currently working with the LMS team to determine how to best use the assessment features in Canvas in support of these district-created assessments. The teaching and learning that occur in each science and engineering classroom in the district could not be done without the support of our Science Resource Center. Last spring and summer, a portion of the central bus facility was modernized to host the Science Resource Center, and this fall, the SRC moved from the basement of Hawthorne to this new facility. To continue to provide excellent service and support the pre-K-12 NGSS transition, the new facility includes upgrades such as live organism prep and care, include industrial sinks, counter spaces for tanks and dishwashers. The facility has a chemical storage closet and safety features such as a fume hood, eye wash station, and safety shower. And in addition, the open concept of the main warehouse provides the space to support the refurbishment and packaging of science kits and materials. In summary, I reviewed the content from previous NGSS presentations, including a reminder of the architecture of the NGSS and the district's high school course pathway. I reviewed the 2018 WACAS outcomes and emphasized a few factors that resulted in our scores. I reviewed the timeline of district transition, highlighting the grade 9 science course in year 1 implementation, the grade 10 science adoption, middle school defined STEM and transition guides, and elementary transition guides and WACAS aligned assessments. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Impressive presentation. Board members, questions?
I have a question.
Comments?
Please. Sure. Thank you. That was very, very informative. But I'm wondering what your outreach might be to parents, because for decades, because I know my mother complained about it, traditional is biology, chemistry, physics. And the only reason I know about this is because my mother would have become an architect at Georgia Tech had she passed physics, but because she didn't pass physics, she couldn't get into Georgia Tech, so too much information. But I believe that because even my daughter came home and said, yeah, the sophomores next year are going to be taking physics, but for the parents as they're registering their kids, if they see that change, and I appreciate the fact that it is for NGSS readiness, but if the test is not until 11th grade, why the switch in the order, which might cause some confusion, again, just to parents, because that's how they did it, or I did it. And then the second thing, it's, how to assure the parents that physics might be scary for most of us in high school, what the support will be for the kids. It's just sort of that change just causes me pause. Great. Because of the word physics. So.
Wonderful. So we are currently in the process of creating communication tools to be used with incoming 8th graders, incoming 9th graders, and incoming 10th graders that describe the course options at the year at which you will be registering for, and descriptors about what the course is about and what it is aligned to and what students will be engaged in learning about when they are in that course. But I appreciate you talking about that change in what is traditional to us in terms of the order in which we typically, and I am very excited about where the design team has decided with district input on implementing the physics course, because for the first time ever, physics is going to be for each student instead of something that many didn't have access to or pursued in the past.
And I think that's where the parents that might have shied away from it in high school, but just because of the word and the science behind it, I just think there could be some tools for parents. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation. It was very, very informative and very knowledgeable, gave me a lot of knowledge, which I did not have before. And I do understand that NGSS is new, and there are some things and some hurdles that we have to do. And I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that with any change, there is always going to be a dip in the resulting scores. I do understand that. My question is, what are we doing to ensure that teachers, like starting off in the 5th grade, getting our students ready for that first WACAS test, what additional professional development is being generated so teachers have the tools they need to ensure that our kids are going to be successful, even though we know that there may be a dip? But what can we do to ensure that the teachers, because I've just been to one saucer, and I asked the question, and they said, well, we're waiting, we're standing by.
And they thanked you.
And they thanked me.
Yeah.
And they thanked you, yeah.
Great.
But what are we doing to give them the professional development that they need in order to ensure that our kids aren't going to see, or we're not going to see, a very large dip in the results of those tests?
Yeah. So Allison Greenberg, our elementary science and engineering instructional facilitator, and myself have had the pleasure of presenting at multiple schools so far this year, either at staff meetings or at 5th grade cadre meetings. And the presentation has been focused on these district tools that have been created to support teachers in their teaching of NGSS aligned instruction. But there's also very specific professional development that Allison has put together that helps the teachers understand the new assessment, the features in the new assessment, and how to utilize the training tools and practice tests that OSPI has finally offered with their students to help them gain more understanding of the features and components and the structure of the assessment. And there has been a lot of that professional development that is happening this year and will continue to happen until the students are taking the assessment in June.
Will there be an opportunity for our students to at least practice a test? Because you say there are different elements to it and different structures to it than what they're used to in previous exam assessments.
Yeah, so part
so
of
that they can be aware of the differences
Yeah.
and know in advance.
So there is an online practice test or training test, as OSPI refers to it, for 5th grade, 8th grade, and 11th grade. So teachers are being introduced to these training tests. And as of just late last week, OSPI updated the 5th grade version to include even more practice items and include many more of the features that they didn't have access to practice for the prior implementation.
It's just so frustrating sometimes when the state puts out a new test and there's no practice and no ability for students or teachers to understand it before the students have to take it.
Right.
But that's not something we can fix. I'm curious on a couple things. First of all, sort of what the teacher feedback has been on the new pathway, the new courses, actually really at all grade levels, and how big of a shift has this been from what they were doing previously? I mean, is this, as Director Wenta would say, a really big lift for them? Or is it just kind of learning, were they already doing certain units? It's just sort of probing in different ways now. I know it's kind of a big categorized, there's a lot of detail in there, but.
So at the high school level, we have a new course in the 9th grade position. We previously had coordinated science. We now have biology and the environment. So there's that shift in just the students who are embarking on the course itself. We have curriculum that's fully digital, which was a shift. We have 2 out of our 4 high schools where this is their first year with students with devices. So just those 2 aspects alone have created a learning curve. In addition to that, what we continue to work with in professional development is shifting our thinking from how we used to teach life science to what the NGSS call for. And in the case of the biology and the environment course, which will also be true for the physics and the universe course, they're integrated course. They're multi-science disciplinary. The biology and the environment course is a life science and earth science course standards combined with engineering as well. The physics and the universe will be traditional physics concepts with earth and space science standards embedded. So students will be studying the concepts of forces, speed, motion, acceleration through the formation of the universe and the structures that we see on the planet. So there is a shift for teachers in how they are conceptualizing how aspects of science go together and complement one another, and what that means about how we're helping students make sense of these concepts and then applying them to problems that we're being asked to solve. I think they would tell you they're tired, and I would really hope that they would tell you that they're receiving a wealth of support.
Good. Yeah. I can't imagine that once we're sort of up and running and the learning curve is a little bit behind us, that it's going to be more interesting for students as well, to have that interdisciplinary in the classroom. Can you remind me real quick, when were the standards implemented?
They were adopted by the state in 2013.
2000. So we're 6 years into it now?
We're 6 years into it, 1 year into an assessment.
And 1 year into the assessment. Okay. Thank you.
And other comments?
Thank you for your presentation. I was unaware of a lot of this information. I just had a question on slide 6, the pathway. I was wondering if a student began high school in the core pathway, would they be able to move up to the advanced placement pathway, or would they be stuck taking non-AP level courses?
Excellent question. So the plan is for students to be able to move between the two pathways as they desire. And so some of the planning tools that we are in the process of creating would help a student and their family make sense of, how do I decide which course makes most sense for me? Is it the biology and the environment course or the AP environmental science? Is it physics in the universe or AP physics 1? What's being studied, and how do I decide which one makes the most sense for who I am as a student?
Okay,
so the hope is that they can be able to bounce back and forth as they need to and want to.
I will just comment on testing aside. I think your presentation showing what the middle school students were doing with the bat houses and all that sort of thing. I mean, what a wonderful learning experience.
Yeah.
And I think this this shift in standards is just going to lead to much more learning on students' part. I liked too the I guess it's the online task platform or whatever, but there's a little picture of a career video embedded in that, and I think things like that are very helpful for middle school students, just getting an idea of what is available in the STEM field. So thank you for sharing those, and thank you. If no one has any more comments, thank you for just an...
I have one question, if I may.
Okay, sure.
The central bus facility.
Yes.
Where is that located?
It's on 80th Street, near Boeing, and the head PUD campus.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Mukilteo School District.
Yes, it is. Yes, and as we get a little bit more settled, we would love to have you come and see it. So
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
I would like the
Looks very
invitation.
Yes.
We like field trips.
Wonderful.
The kids.
Yeah. Okay, again, thank you for an excellent
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you very much.
An update. And let me get back to my... Okay, we'll move on to section 12, unfinished business. And we have a second reading of policy 3143, district notification of juvenile offenders.
This item is in your unfinished business because you had conversation during the first reading of the policy adjustments that the superintendent and staff cannot reconcile. We cannot determine from comments other than the movement to the second reading when there's disagreement on the board which changes we should apply. That's, by the way, why you saw the material based on emails to me in the board policy item that had a couple of different options, and then we provided you one based on the conversation as we understood it. In this case, the item is before you. Mr. Fleckenstein is available for question. I'm not sure that's entirely necessary, as it pretty much, you'll decide that, of course. It boils down to the selection of one word versus another. So the mechanism that I think you need to use to move forward, unless you can handle it with just conversation, is a motion, and then a motion to amend if indeed that's how you would all like to proceed. That's about all the commentary I think I have for you on the second reading.
Okay, shall we start with the motion? Which will lead us to discussion, or so is there a motion to
I move to approve it as written.
I second.
It's been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Mason to approve policy 3143 as written and
As
revised.
presented on second
As
reading for
presented on
adoption,
second
yes.
reading. Thank you. Is there discussion?
I have one question. When I look at this sentence, and I shall read it, it says additionally, if a student is convicted or adjudicated. Can you hear me? No. If a student is, can you hear me now? If a student is convicted of, adjudicated for, or has entered into a diversion agreement for assault, kidnapping, harassment, stalking, or arson against another student. The offending student, and the word that is in question, shall or may, not be assigned to the same class as another student, as the other student. And then it says in the second, or right below it, convicted juvenile sex offenders shall not attend a school in the district attended by their victims or their victims' siblings. And the word that's in question there is the shall. Now, my question is, if a student has been convicted of assault or kidnapping, stalking, or how is that any different than if a convicted juvenile sex offender convicted could also be an assault of some type or kidnapping of some type? How is that different?
I can't say why that's different when the legislature and the language is drafted for these particular changes to law. What I can show you is how the law is written as it pertains to the highlighted section, whether a student is a may or a shall. The second paragraph that's on the screen there is specifically referring to sex offenders and is also found and referenced in other board policy and procedures. The paragraph that's in question is specific to those other offenses, assault, kidnapping, and harassment, as written into law. So I'll just go down into the cross-reference section and click on the cross-reference to RCW 28A 600-460, where the language in question that the board is discussing is actually found. And within Section 2 and Section 3, specifically, it indicates that as it pertains to students in a student's same similar classroom, it would be may be expelled, may be where the student is assigned. So I've put that on the screen for you here. In your attachment, also you could zoom in much to more detail as well. But it is the recommendation of legal counsel that we would keep the wording as it is explicitly written in law, as opposed to changing that. And I believe in our previous discussion or sharing with the board, to change what is written in law changes our level of risk, or opens up to greater risk if we are more specific.
And I did reflect upon that. That's why I moved to keep the language the same, where last time I participated in the discussion, because of that risk, it really is that adage of the one versus the many, that the master schedule, great care is taken into making sure that that doesn't happen. But if it were to happen, and depending on what the settlement might be, then it could be harm to many because of the financial burden if we were sued because of an honest oversight in that master schedule of scheduling 2,000 kids at a high school. And that the policy says great care will be taken to make sure that it doesn't happen. And I'm pretty sure apologies and every accommodation would be made to the student if a mistake was made, but that it is sort of the one versus the many that sort of had me consider keeping it as shall. I mean, as may to protect the many. While caring for the one.
I just did a little Google of shall versus may and found some really interesting sort of material, but basically found that shall it's a highly litigated word, and it's also being replaced. I think it was the FAA, and then this article was from the American Bar Association saying shall is being replaced with more definitive words such as must, because shall can be so arbitrary. So that was kind of a finding, which is something we might want to consider in our future policies too. There's a lot of shalls in this policy that perhaps should be musts, and I'm not suggesting that we change it, but it does appear that the word shall is being moved away from. So should we just go ahead and call for a vote on approving this policy as presented? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain. I shall abstain.
So there are 4 yes votes and 1 abstention, and motion carries. Let's see, you are on to new business. I think I need to refresh my
You might.
docs.
Item
Don't-
13.1 is Policy 2215, Highly Capable Programs. It's a proposed revision on first reading.
Okay.
So revisions to Policy 2215, Highly Capable Programs, are presented for the board's consideration to comply with changes made to RCW 28A 300-770, requiring clear identification procedures for highly capable programs, including the use of criteria for equitable identification of low-income students. Updates include addition of applicable RCWs in the cross-reference section and language recognizing end-of-year reporting of highly capable data within our annual report to OSBI as required by Washington Administrative Code 392-170-090. The proposed revisions to Policy 2215, Highly Capable Programs, have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on?
I have a question that just popped out. I read it earlier, but it didn't come to light. Section, or number C on providing the program for highly capable, and it talks about middle school may participate voluntarily in honors English, language arts sequence, and math. Do we want to be that specific of just those two pathways in case we provide, for example, because they can get high school credit, which is kind of for science, for example. They can do that today, and yet we limit it to ELA and math. Is there a reason?
I think that is, as students are coming out of elementary school and into the middle level program and being the language there changes from grade 6 through 8 to middle school level. Making sure that those are the two pathways that students are self-selecting into as they come from 5th grade to 6th grade, as you already have seen those presentations. If we were to add another pathway program, we would amend the language here to reflect those other content areas.
Okay, so we don't see coordinated science in 8th grade as a highly capable pathway?
It's a high school credit-bearing pathway in the 8th grade year, as opposed to what we have as an honors pathway program starting or coming out of 5th grade to 6th grade. Okay. So although it is also an advanced course for the particular grade level that it's offered in, it's more considered a high school credit-bearing course as opposed to a highly capable pathway that students can also select into.
I guess I was comparing it to what we say at the high school level, which is very generic. It's just sort of honors, AP, college and the high school running start. They don't identify any specific pathways like the science pathway we just saw. They just talk about these are the options available for a more advanced. It just seemed inconsistent, I guess.
Would language also be in that same situations? They can't take really Spanish, AP Spanish 1 or anything like that. There's no AP Spanish 1, but that would just be considered high school credit in middle school, not an honors language class.
Yeah, I think to your point, for both the advanced science pathway being offered in 8th grade and Spanish language within our middle level programs, those are not pathways that begin as self-select beginning in 6th grade. That's why they're not listed specifically in this policy. They are advanced options beginning in 8th grade for students to select into, but from a highly capable standpoint, we're looking at those pathways through the middle level, and that would begin in the 6th grade year.
Gotcha.
And I think that's the intent by which this was written, not to be exhaustive of all advanced options that are offered.
What would you like to, how would you like it to read?
I just asked the question because that would be a comparison, you know, Spanish or something, an honors Spanish. It's just high school credit that they would be taking.
I think, I mean, I wasn't here when this was written originally, but when I read it, it strikes me as instruction to the staff that at least these areas are areas where students should have the option to participate, type of a program, versus an exhaustive list or you know, other things we might create and add to the selection. Wanted to amend and add or broaden, you would have to be kind of careful about coming back and then revising policy if you were in a budget cut mode or program change mode. That would be my only caution on. Want it to be more descriptive, or you want to add something that says at least. You could do that if you'd like.
I guess I just have one question about the consistency, though, to Caroline's point. If it is 6th grade honors English language and math, which are the two things offered, freshmen, I don't believe, can take college in the high school or running start as 9th graders. Mm-hmm. And so maybe because that is their full 4 years versus entry into high school, that, no, because they're two different things. You're talking an 8th grade class is missing, and this has 11th and 12th grade classes in the high school section. So they are inconsistent at their levels.
Yeah, I think the subtle wording differences between section C and D, for example, section C is saying may participate in a voluntary program. And the spirit of this particular section is about a program that serves highly capable students' needs. And so the middle program is about may participate in a voluntary program, whereas high school is subtly worded to say the needs of its highly capable students are met through. So slightly different wording choice. One, I believe section D is more encompassing of in the high school level, here's all the things highly capable students could access to fulfill their highly capable learning needs. I think one of the things that stands out to me in this particular wording of both sections is the accessibility of all students, and students even at the middle level to participate in a voluntary program, not limiting students only to a highly capable such test in the middle level, which is initial identification in our elementary program. So, but I can totally understand if you'd like to make some amendments. I'm ready to receive those.
I guess I don't have a recommendation. My only comment on the inconsistency was C talks about specific subject areas, and D talks about what's available for students to participate in. Mm-hmm. And we have, you would have, for example, like the science, I think is a good example, that students that were more advanced would choose to take that in middle school. But like I said, I don't really have, and I'm not sure it's that important. Mm-hmm. It's still available.
Yeah.
Okay. No revisions to this. We will move it to next meeting for second reading.
Thank you, Larry. All right, the next item on your agenda, 13.2, was removed from the consent agenda. It is the approval of a letter of agreement between the Everett Association of Paraeducators and Everett Public Schools. Debbie Kovacs is going to walk through for you a set of PowerPoint slides that we added to this item as a result of not adding the information to your material last Friday when we had expected to do so. We also have added information as a result of inquiries from directors arising out of social media posts that contain information that we simply cannot verify. Maybe I should say we cannot substantiate.
Okay, thank you. So tonight I'll summarize the Everett Association of Paraeducators tentative agreement, and I will answer directors' questions regarding the tentative agreement terms. So on December 11th, we had a tentative agreement, and then on January 11th, the association ratified the agreement with 149 yes votes and 64 no votes for a 70% approval. The agreement includes vacation and longevity stipend conversions that were applied to the salary schedule. I'll talk a bit about that in the next slide. We also updated the language to align with the legislative language from flow-through and COLA to the implicit price deflator, or IPD, or 2%, whichever is higher. The 30% district voluntary benefit subsidy will conclude August 31, and it's wanted to note that in this particular situation on the subsidy that the district offered that amount to all employee groups in line with the Teachers Association, and when their collective bargaining agreement expired, that went away. And then we agreed to retroactively give salary increases to September 1, 2018. Another bit to note is that there has been some talk about the Washington Paid Family Medical Leave Act. That was part of the legislation as well. Those fees are not included in this bargain. They're outside of it because it was just reopeners on specific items in the collective bargaining agreement, not the entire agreement. So we will address that when the agreement is completely open. And then lastly, it's important to note that as part of the agreement, the district guaranteed that no employees would receive anything less than 3.1% increase. In your information, there's a 3-year review. I'm going to summarize the first year and then just mention the last 2 years of the agreement. So the district budgeted $956,980. The cost of the first year of the agreement is $1,170,763, which is $213,783 over what we budgeted. The percent of increase above the 3.1 is 7.2%. And then it's important that you hear the keyword average applied to the schedule, because you're going to see some percentages that are all over the board, but the average was 12.1%. And that average increase to the salary schedule is composed of first 4.9% vacation and longevity stipends were applied to the schedule, and then we added 2.3% to the schedule. It was necessary to adjust it to ensure that all paraeducators received the minimum of 3.1% that we guaranteed. And then finally, we did the market analysis and added an additional 4.9% to the salary schedule for the total average, again, remember average, of 12.1 across the entire schedule. The previously scheduled market analysis within the collective bargaining agreement, we were going to do that this spring. We accelerated, moved it up, so that was part of this negotiation. So we will not be doing another review until this contract is fully open in August of 2021. And then again, it's important to note that these numbers that I'm sharing with you do not include the 3.1% that has already been provided to the paraeducators in fall of 2018. This schedule is the existing schedule, and we implemented that fall of 2018. It's important to note that that these wage rates do not include the vacation and longevity stipends that are paid in addition to the wages that you see here. And so that is the conversion that is applied, and you'll see in the next slide. So on the top portion, you'll see the dollar amounts that were added to each cell, and then the percentages that they represent below. It's important to note that the percentages you see on the new slide, and again, that average of 12.1% across the schedule, represent numbers above the 3.1% that was granted in September. So for example, here, you'll see 23.5% for a paraeducator who has 25 or more years of experience. You need to add the 3.1% on top of that for a total of 26.6% in that cell.
So likewise, if you were to drop down that column and you were to look at classroom specialists,
right,
it would
be 12.2 plus 3.1.
32.75 plus or 15.1 plus?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So these percentages include vacation and longevity stipends converted to wages, whereas the previous slide, again, it's important to note that did not represent those, that the wages you see on the previous were wages and then we added the vacation and longevity. And again, the percentages do not include that 3.1%.
Debbie,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but can you explain how that works, the conversion of longevity and vacation?
So
I'm
I'll
not sure I completely understand.
I'll do my
that.
best. So
layman's terms.
Gotcha. So essentially, before this tentative agreement, paraeducators had a variety of different work schedules, and they were granted additional paid days we call vacation because they can't accrue vacation and take it because they're school day employees. So those additional days, they ranged from anywhere between 19 days to, I don't know what the lowest number. 8, thank you. So we took that total number, those total number of days, that total pot of money, and then we applied it to the schedule, which then brought us to a standard work calendar for everybody. And then we dispersed those additional dollars across the schedule. So nobody gets paid days anymore. Nobody gets longevity because we added longevity steps to the right. I think we stopped, if we go to the prior slide here, we only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. We have more steps. So we added longevity steps to the schedule. So that is about as layman as I can get in terms of how that worked. So I think this bell curve gives you a visual of, while we have a variety of percentage increases across the schedule, it gives you a better representation of the impacts of the percentage increases to wages only. We did not include benefits in our analysis here that you see. It's a better visual of the wage adjustments that paraeducators will actually realize in their paychecks, which is the average of 7.2% because, again, they're already receiving the 3.1%. So you'll see this is the average. Most of them fall here. There's some outliers. Those outliers are the ones that we need to look at and ensure that they're getting the 3.1%. And the Human Resources Department is committed to meeting with each of these individuals because it is individual depending upon what they choose. And there's information that gives you a sample of if they selected life insurance, if they selected a specific benefit, the impacts to that. And again, the guarantee is that they will not receive anything less than 3.1%. And the others will be a variety of different percentages. Again, the average is the 12.1%. So that's, in a nutshell, the agreement. And I'm open to questions that you have. And the last 2 years of the agreement will be the either 2% or IPD, whichever is greater.
So if I had a neighbor who's in Para who saw me walking down the street and ran out of her house to talk to me, and reported to me at the vote that somebody did the math and was going to get lose money, but that was on her napkin doing math. You've already assessed that of that 0, are there people that are actually worse off, or is that something that still needs to be explored?
Nobody will be worse off than 3.1%. The district will need to grandfather in if there are some folks who might have, because of the insurance they selected, or because of the benefit FTE going down slightly because of that $30 subsidy being concluded. We will work with them to ensure that essentially they maintain their pay that they're currently receiving.
So each of those people is being contacted, has been contacted, or is being looked at?
They are, all of our paraeducators are encouraged to, through their union leadership and through HR, to contact us individually to do that, because it really is. We thought about doing some type of a, calculator, but again, if you don't plug in the right numbers, you're not going to get the right result.
Okay, thank you. And I haven't seen social media, so I don't know what's out there.
Lots.
Any other questions?
Yes, I do. I have another question. When I look at I think that there's some confusion, and there may be some confusion amongst the individual employees. When they ask the question, because when you look at the 12.1 average applied over the schedule, and then you look at the 7.2%, I mean, I don't think too many people are understanding where the 12.1% is coming from and how it's broken down in comparison with the 7.2%, and also understanding that nobody gets less than 3.1%. There's a lot of numbers out there.
You described the absolute complexities of this agreement.
And I think because of that, it leaves a lot of people to be confused. It truly does. If you look on page 7, you see the slide and you see the average is 7.2%, and you can understand where your 12 and 13% are coming from. But when you look at this, I don't see 12.1% average applied to the schedule. Then I look at the schedule and I see that it's changed compared to the existing schedule, and you only had 6 different different steps, so to speak. And then you look at this, there's a lot of confusion there.
I think it's really important to recognize that it is an unfair labor practice for us to go out and explain this to the membership of the union. That's their job. We can't do it. If they come to us once it's approved, we can explain all kinds of things.
Okay.
But we need to be careful about what we think we should do versus what the Public Employment Relations Commission would tell us is an unfair labor practice under their rules and laws. And so I want to make sure that it's nice to be able to explain, and I want to make sure that we agree with you. Understand, we agree with you. We'd love to be able to explain, but we have to go only so far, and going beyond that is really inappropriate for us until both the union and the board have approved it, and then we can put out all kinds of explanatory material. I think it's really, that's really critical. And we may feel that it ties our hands, but that's the way this process is established by the state. And I don't want anybody to pick up the impression that the district, the bargaining team, didn't do its job communicating. And I know you're not trying to say that, but I want to make sure that we are real clear about that's inappropriate for us to do.
I had a quick question. Do you know how many of the members voted, what percentage of all paras that is? Roughly?
There was 219 who voted, and I think we have 500.
So less than half
head count, right,
chose not to vote on their contract.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just want to make a comment that I did hear from a couple of paraeducators that were very happy with the agreement and the addition of the longevity steps, people that have been with us for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they took a moment to remind me that a lot of paraeducators don't do the job for the money, although we do like to have competitive rates, certainly, to attract and maintain our talented people. But that, it provides an opportunity for a lot of parents who have kids in school to work a schedule when their kids are in school and really contribute back to their school community. Much of sort of those comments we heard earlier tonight about being on the school board and just, being able to have a positive impact on kids. Mm-hmm. So.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any other questions or discussion items? Hearing none, I think we'll move to the vote. Oh, no, we've got the motion, sorry.
The motion.
All those in favor of approving the letter of agreement between Everett Association of Paraeducators and Everett Public Schools, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. We'll move to upcoming agenda items. Dr. Cohn, will you let us know about the meeting on January 31st?
Certainly. On item 14.1 is a special meeting. It's scheduled for January 31. It is the Mayor's State of Everett address, and it's my understanding that 4 of the 5 of you will be attending with me, but I'm not entirely sure. Maybe more, maybe less. We'll see.
I will be out of town. I'm out of town.
You're out of town, so I thought I was right. It's at least 4 the last time we talked. So item 14.2 is a regular meeting February 5th. It includes a strategic plan mid-year progress report, a first reading for a new policy, or I'm sorry, first reading for a new set of revisions for policy 6500, risk management. You'll have an enrollment outlook, and that enrollment outlook information actually is is going to be included in a variety of information pieces that we're working with right now. So elements of it will be, I think, out and about in the news potentially before we actually do the presentation, and that has to do with our sharing it with a number of the groups that are working at our behest, like Boundary Committee and Bond Committee, and et cetera, et cetera. So that information is going to be circulated a bit. You'll see a December financial report. We'll have the Stadium Espresso lease agreement for your action at that point in time. You will be selecting for us a student representative selection committee board representative, to get that in order. And then we have a short recognition as a result of the very high quality wellness program that we run here in the district. Those are the upcoming meeting items.
Thank you, Dr. Cohn. Move to section 15, which is executive session. We do have an executive session this evening.
I'm getting high side, yes.
Yeah. Okay. From time to time, the Board of Directors will hold an executive session for a purpose authorized by the Open Public Meetings Act. Tonight, we will recess to executive session to discuss potential litigation, and the session is expected to conclude within 30 minutes. Is that true?
Well, I think we'll estimate 30 minutes, and if we need to have more time for you to discuss with council, we'll come out and announce that, but I think we'll estimate 30 minutes, and I don't believe that there will be any action taken after the meeting, because this is really, it's a consult with council on a particular case.
Thank you.
Recess.
Recess to executive session.
Well,